Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Greed Ninja podcast. We have Wavy P and myself, Metallica 206 here.
Yo.
Just wanted to get this podcast started about, we're going to cover just general questions, basically, that newer players might have in Magic. How Ultra Greed Media approaches playing Magic, how Greed Ninjas play, the mindset we have, and, like, the different strategies that we have of trying to get to the higher levels in Magic. Like myself, I've had a I haven't necessarily gotten first place at GPs and stuff like that, but I've had a pretty okay career as far as like I've won prizes from like PTQs, Pro Tour qualifiers, some decent places at GPs and stuff like that, and all the way to like small stuff like FNMs and store tournaments and stuff like that.
So, me, in my experience, as far as card games just in general, started off with Yu-Gi-Oh, obviously. And then I've been on and off in Magic probably like the last 5 years. And then I didn't start taking it like actually serious and grinding until probably like a month ago, right? Maybe at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we made the Mono Black deck. And then the Brotherhood began. So, a lot of my insider understanding of Magic comes from like uh, I guess a monocolor perspective because I'm not complex enough to understand deck building, and also too it's like monocolors are just easier for me. You know what I mean? I still don't understand a lot of concepts in the game, so I just kind of go with like the simple shit. And sometimes the simple shit in the game like really fucking works. But yeah,
Are you familiar with the concept called the color pie?
no,
The color pie is the basic definition of what colors do and their identity and flavor in Magic.
okay,
Yeah. So the color pie breaks down, and especially set by set when they do this. There's a. Do you have my letter? No, I got it. But there's a, they have a color council at Magic at Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
They have a color council which like makes sure that the colors do what they're supposed to be doing when they're like given new stuff in each set. And like for example, they had a block back when they used to do blocks. And blocks were typically 3 sets that would come out that were related, and they had a related storyline and stuff like that. They had Time Spiral block, and this was a block where basically the planes and it was Planar Chaos, Time Spiral, and Future Sight were the 3 sets that came out in it. One of them was like a time shifted version of other sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Planar Chaos, for example, I'm pretty sure was Time Spiral. They brought back a lot of old cards with reprints and new abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They brought back old cards and they also had new cards in the set as well. But the cool thing about it was that they were bringing back old cards and like giving them a flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Planar Chaos, they color shifted cards, and they made cards that could do things that were outside of their typical color thing, but were kind of associated. Like they printed a card called Harmonize, right? 2 colors, 2 green, draw 3 cards.
Wow. Okay, and that's like typically something that blue would do, right? Like just draw.
Just draw, yeah.
Okay.
So it kind of would give you like a little insight into like how other cards or how other colors would be able to accomplish the same thing. Like there's a card in this is like a 1-to-1. There's a card in blue that came out a long time ago called Force Spike, right?
Yeah.
It's 1 blue. It's blue. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 colorless, right? 1 generic.
Yeah.
They color shifted it into a card called Monetize. White with the same ability.
1-to-1 ratio as far as the price though.
Everything is the same. It's white. Literally costs 1 white. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 colorless.
Okay, but question.
Or 1 generic rather.
This is only during that period of Magic though, right? Because like within like the newer standards or even like Alchemy. Well, I haven't really been too familiar with the last 2 seasons of Magic, or at least the 2 years through Alchemy. So I've only been in Standard, but I'd say like don't you run into decks that can do some things that other decks can do, and then you have decks that like strictly only do things that only their color can do. Like, and when I say that, for example, right, like you don't have cards printed anymore that like just go out of their, I guess, what their color is supposed to do, right?
Color. It's called color identity.
Or they don't. There aren't cards printed that go outside of their color identity through what you're speaking on, right? Because I think you said mana shifting. Is that what the term was?
They were color shifted.
Or color shifted, and that's just taking one card and then moving it to another color, but like changing the name.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why'd they do that?
To show what's possible with the rules of Magic when you really examine them. Because white can counter spells, it's just not the first thing that it does, right? And then that leads to them when they just like if they don't explore that space at all, right? Mm-hmm. It leads to a kind of a stagnant game where they get stuck on only things that are already present for them to be able to do, and only be doing those things, as opposed to being like they made a card called Aven Interrupter when they came up with Plot, right? Mm-hmm. It's 1 white for a 2/2 bird with flying. When it enters the battlefield, plot target spell and plot target spell, and it costs
in your hand or anywhere.
Plot target spell. Spells only exist on the stack.
Okay.
Plot target spell, and then also has the ability spells your opponent's cast from exile cost 2 colors more to cast, or 2 generic more to cast. So that's another way that you can kind of like counter spells.
Yeah.
But since it's plot, it doesn't really counter the spell, right? Yeah. It's more of a delay effect.
Yeah, so you just have to use it the next turn instead, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or a turn after, just you can't do it the same turn.
Okay. And what color has this card?
It's white.
White?
Yeah, it's 1 white.
Alright, Brian, so what is Magic?
Magic is a collectible... well, its full name is Magic the Gathering. But it's a collectible trading card game created by Richard Garfield, owned and maintained by Wizards of the Coast, where you start with 20 life, a deck typically constructed a minimum of 60 cards, where you can only run 4 copies of each card, and the best I can say, without getting into all the specifics, is there's the rules of the game. You start at 20 life. There's main phases, upkeep. There's the turn order. There's untap, upkeep, draw, first main phase, combat, second main phase, and end step and cleanup. Right.
So far, it's just almost the same as Yu-Gi-Oh.
Right.
Where does the major change happen? When decks are introduced, or when?
There's a fundamental difference with Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic.
Yeah, and
it's the mana system.
Yeah, the source. I was going to say the source system, but mana system. Yeah. Whereas in Yu-Gi-Oh, it's creatures, and in Magic, it's actual mana itself.
Well, in Yu-Gi-Oh, they don't really have magic. I mean, they don't really have mana. Like,
well, me and you were talking the other day. Well, not once the other day, a few months ago, about how the mana base in Yu-Gi-Oh really is just the creatures you use.
It should be. Like, if I had designed the system, I would have made it where basically you got to add up the cost of your creature. Like, some of them, like maybe 3 and below, can be played for free, and you got to add up the cost of the creatures, and maybe you get 1+ star
and that would make
to be able to sack and summon other shit. And there wouldn't necessarily be a limit on what you can summon, but like
either you add it up, or you can go ahead and add it up, and either has to be equal to or less than the creatures you're getting rid of to go ahead and bring something better out. Like, that's what I thought makes sense. You got into all the special summoning shit, and that's why Magic is more fun now.
There's just no limit on Yu-Gi-Oh. Shit's too easy to break.
In Magic isn't?
There's a few more hoops you have to go through to break shit. Timing restrictions, stack, like they can always respond potentially, that type of shit.
Whereas in Yu-Gi-Oh, you have a max of 5 potentially you may be able to respond with.
And there's a limitation of the traps themselves only activate within a window of they have to be played on your turn, and they're not activated on your turn. They have to be activated after the turn they come into play.
Whereas in Magic, you can do anything on your turn.
Yeah.
And only some things on your opponents.
Yeah. So, anyway, the crux that we're trying to get into is he has a lot of questions that newer players like have about the game, and
We were
I
explaining
want to
what the
address
game
them.
was.
Yeah,
And essentially, it's like, made by.
but it's made by Richard Garfield. There's like ostensibly you want to play cards that get your opponent's life total to 0 because when the opponent's life total is at 0, they lose the game. Whoever's at 0
most
loses.
of the time.
We're just going over the basic rules. That's why we don't want to get into every caveat.
Okay.
Like at 0 they lose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like the best way to sum it up for people that don't really know is there's the rules of the game and then there's the rules on the cards and the rules on the cards overrule the rules of the game.
Because they determine the outcome as well, more than the rules of the game do.
Well, it's just the rules on whatever the card says is what the card does, right?
Yeah. And sometimes
If the card says unless something says that something can't happen because can't always outrules can, like the rules on the cards outrule the rules of the game.
And I also have a question about that too. Would you say that Magic to a degree is just whoever can break the game the best? Because typically speaking, just like you know how Yu-Gi-Oh in the beginning before all the special effect monsters, like there was like this normal summon, so it's like, oh, my shit's bigger than your shit, so it beats your shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like then you add like your spells and your traps to spice that up. Whereas Magic, I'm assuming, typically are kind of sort of started off the same, and then like once they got into different archetypes and different cards and different decks, it's
What
like
you're talking about is power creep.
power creep. What is power creep?
The inevitability that cards have to get stronger. For example,
Can you
they haven't printed a vanilla creature in Magic in like 5 years plus.
So they did create one. It'd probably be a fucking rare off rip. And
No, it wouldn't be a rare.
Why not?
A vanilla creature. Do you know what a vanilla creature is?
Original?
No, a vanilla creature is a creature with no abilities and just just stats.
That's what I meant when I said original.
Vanilla.
That's what I meant. Well, that's what I meant when I said original. But vanilla, okay, I understand what you're saying. It's like when it has just the text on it, like describing the card, right? Or the scenery of it.
When it only has flavor text and no
only flavor text and its power and toughness.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. Okay, if one did come out, would that make it rare, or would that make it just insta garbage?
It's the garbage.
What if it went? So, question. You know how Yu-Gi-Oh has archetypes that take the use of normal monsters to give them certain effects and benefits? Are there decks in Magic that
you don't really ask the question decks in the same way? Like you can't look at everything as decks. Like decks occur from cards.
Oh, okay. Or are there cards that give you benefits for having cards that only have flavor text?
They never mention flavor text in the rules text unless it's unset.
Okay.
But as far as creatures with no abilities, there are stuff that buff creatures with no abilities, but it's not often.
Okay. So it's not really like that good anyways.
Creatures with no abilities have no abilities. That's why they're not good.
Yeah, and that's just kind of getting into too much anyways right now, because the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, before we even get into like card types and creatures and shit like that, is okay, we already got to what Magic is, right? Getting your opponent's life total to 0. Now, how do you play a game of Magic, right? First, you have to get a deck. Now, however you find a deck to play this wonderful game, you do. And then you shuffle your deck, and then you draw your first 7. Now, what happens after the first 7 draw?
In a competitive environment, or even in a casual one, I guess, you mulligan, right?
Yeah, but you have this whole concept when it comes to mulligan, right? Like, when I first started playing, I only felt comfortable playing with at least 3 mana in my hand. And I'd mulligan until, like, I got that 3. But then, like, okay, sometimes I would never hit 3 and I just have less cards. And then it's like, damn, I don't want to keep putting stuff down, so now I got to play with this hand. Or I just, like, mulligan and then, okay, boom, I didn't get my 3, I just concede because now I have, like, 3 cards in my hand. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And it's like, that's tough. So then you're like, all right, play with 7. Like, fuck it, unless you only have 1 mana or no mana. Because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. You're just taking one less card for no reason. But why? What do you mean by taking one less card for no reason? Because what if it gets you to your win condition a little bit better, you know? Or things of that nature.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot to what you're asking, because it's like you're looking at it in a very narrow scope, and like even looking at it as specifically being like 2 or 1. We're back.
No, it was more so what you were saying. Because you were talking about how it was...
Oh, yeah, there's levels to it, right? So basically, you're looking at it specifically like 2 lands versus 3 lands versus 1 land or whatever, right? You have to look at it. This is why you should read Next Level Deck Building, because they talk about how to build your deck to be able to consistently get the number of lands you need.
Yeah.
Right? How many lands do you need and how many lands should you start with are like separate questions that are related. right? If you're like, there's a whole hypergeometric, deep mathematical analysis of all this stuff that tells you the exact percentages with how many lands, with how many cards, typically based off 60, right? And like, there's like funny ways to look at stuff, but like the serious way to look at it is you eventually get a feel for it. But it's like, what's my max curve? How many lands do I need right now? How many playables do I have in my hand? Right? Like if you have three mana cost cards and Sheoldred, and like if you have 5 3 mana cost cards in or you have three mana cost cards and like 2 Sheoldreds, right, which are like 4 mana cost, and you only have 2 lands. Do you want to keep that hand? Probably not, because you don't have anything to do turn 1 or turn 2. But if you have a hand with 2 lands that's like Hopeless Nightmare, Ruthless Negotiation, Cut Down, Go for the Throat, like
it's like, and you've been looking over my shoulder, and I'm like about to mulligan, and you're like, no, what are you doing? Keep that hand. I'm like, I only have 2 land though. And you're like, keep the hand. I'm like, all right. And then like, I'll win the match, but then it's because it's like, oh yeah, I can just do everything that's already in my hand.
Right.
Even though, because the way I look at it too, and this is one of the issues I have, and I feel like some new gamers coming in from different games might feel too, is mana efficiency usage. For example, if you're coming from Hearthstone, you want to be able to do everything you need to do on your turn with all the available mana you have, because it's available there for a reason, and you don't necessarily get that mana back, because it's expendable. And Magic kind of has the same idea, where it's like, if you're passing your turn with untapped land and you can't do anything on your opponent's turn, then you left that land untapped for no reason, and now you're kind of taking a mana disadvantage to a degree as well when it comes to the amount of things that you versus your opponent have used. Even though it's more of a complex idea I'm getting into, it's more so like...
No, I get what you're talking about. No, this is another thing I wanted to actually talk about. It's like...
Well, before we get into that then, we're only on Mulligan.
But this relates, though.
Okay, if it relates to Mulligan, let's go into it. Yeah, okay.
Because you're talking about what you want... The reason why you're mulliganing is about what you want to be able to do each turn.
Yeah.
Right? So, what you really have to think about is, when you're taking turns, and this is where sometimes I get annoyed a little bit with sometimes how CJ plays.
Yeah.
But also, he doesn't necessarily think about mana efficiency, I don't think, right? Where, I'm not sure if it's a next level deck building, but I know LSV talks about mana efficiency. And there's points in the game where you have to make, and I was just doing this with Gridger, where you have to make a choice between reads, mana efficiency, and tempo. And what do I mean by reads? Where it's like holding the cut down, or when you're playing Red Prowess in Standard now, right? I hang on to my Felonious Rage just in case they have removal from my creature, so I can have a 2/2 to replace it. And I'm missing out on 2 damage each turn, but it saves me when I can finish the game having a 2/2. But like instantly, it keeps me from using mana on certain turns where I just have to keep 1 red up every turn.
It also
and that's not mana efficient.
That Brian was talking about that's only really present in high level play, which I'm starting to become more aware of. Like I play really fearless regardless. Like I play with my black deck like it's a red deck because like I get so much value off of forcing a discard, right? Because it's like, okay, it's instant removal rather than me waiting for you to play it and then having to deal with it as a problem. You know what I'm saying? Which is why I'm like, in my opinion, I feel like discard is the best thing in the game. And the only thing that beats it, because this game is, it's like, man, like it's like a huge game of rock, paper, scissors, gun. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Laser beam, and then fucking sword. And then, you know what I mean? Back to rock somehow, then back to paper, then scissors, then, you know, then sometimes scissors beats, like, human knight, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. It's like, it's never consistent. It's consistently inconsistent. That's what I'll say about fucking Magic. You can build a deck that does stuff, but then, like, when it starts doing stuff against a deck that does other stuff, a lot of things happen, you know? It's how we were made, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, that was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still on Mulligan?
Yeah. We were just talking about mana efficiency at the same time.
Okay.
Because you have to be able to read when you're taking making your mulligan choices. You have to think about.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
What goes in my head? Because I don't play dumb, but because I'm not as experienced, I just do what I know works to continue to win, right?
Mhm.
So it doesn't leave much room for too much thought outside of what I've seen work. So at least with the mono black discard that I run, I always if I have cutthroat
Yeah,
in my
cutthroat.
hand, the one cost remove if their toughness is 5
Or cut down, you mean?
cut down. If I have it in my hand, turn 1, I always leave the mana open for it up to turn 3 because then I know you're not really gonna be dropping shit that's added up less than 5. And through
Mhm.
my experience, I've seen that, especially if I'm playing like green, uh, red. I can leave it in my hand all day. Blue, I can leave it in my hand all day. Black is iffy. Green, no. They're about to try to stomp you. And then fucking white, I can leave it in my hand. It's only green where it's like, okay, after turn 1, 2, like, okay, bro, you're not playing anything that's weak enough for me to kill with this shit,
Mhm.
right? Whereas with the other decks, it's like, even if they are playing something that's weak enough, you got things to worry about like counters, or you got shit like, okay, next. Turn 2. Turn 2 for me, I leave it open for go for the throat or shoot the bit sheriff. Why? Because it's like you play something turn 2 and I can remove it on my turn. Okay, instantly I gain value off that. You know what I'm saying? Especially if I'm playing like an aggro deck, which is like, for example, with the meta right now, especially with that red aggro, rather than the cards being very good, how you play against it is, at least especially with this deck, is all the difference, right? Because if I like don't leave the mana open, because there's times I have like a Hopeless Nightmare in my hand versus a go for the throat
Cut down.
or cut down, right? Or even like that, like yeah, no, even see like still because I'm talking turn 2, right?
Mhm.
Current turn 2, now it's like I can still, okay, let's say I drew a Hopeless Nightmare, land for turn, now I'm at 2, and I have my go for the throat in my hand, and then I also have my Hopeless Nightmare in my hand. I don't always Hopeless Nightmare, that mana efficiency, because I still want to leave that mana open for the potential kill on a threat that might come out when they either go up on 2 or they go to 3. You know what I'm saying? Because like I've been seeing a lot of decks that do a lot of crazy shit. So it's like I've just learned my lesson at this point. Rather than taking 12 damage in a turn because I chose not to go ahead and save the mana to kill. And I realized kind of how the algorithm thinks. It like gives you cards and responses to situations that you may be potentially able to win in.
Nah, that's deck building.
Well, why do you say that? Because there's times where it's like
The algorithm don't do shit but make
I,
random shit and
I feel like
then play
RNG does
shit.
have a lot to do in the game because bro, there's times where it's like I could have won, but where's like the 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 cards that I could have drew into? Why am I only getting land?
It's called variance.
You know what? And there's just as many games where I draw land as there are when I'm like not. And usually when I lose a game, it's because of that. But then I also be feeling like, oh, it's like the game is trying to give my opponent a dub because they're just getting everything. So it starts to feel. And they hit their land per turn.
See, but this is something me and Grigio talked about, right?
Yeah.
So there's two things that play in the game: skill and variance. Variance is the random shit that's going on, and skill is your ability to play the game. If you get your skill to maximum, all that's left is variance. And like, yeah, sometimes you might have a 60-40 against you matchup,
Yeah.
but like, there's
You
still
still
that
got that
40%
40.
chance
Yeah,
that you
boy.
can win.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy.
So like,
Hey, Brian.
just as much as they can have that great hand that beats you,
I mean,
the nuts, you could have that hand that's just like better than what they had.
I've been over, like, anytime I'm over here, I'm going grinding Magic. The last, like, week and a half I've been doing it, I wasn't in ranked, and I didn't realize it until today.
Oh damn!
I know. So, I'm gold 1, though. About to be plat, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
I made
got
it to plat.
lot of experience, too, like, a lot of Magic experience while I've been playing. Because playing in standard casuals, it's like, you see everything.
People play crazy shit.
You see the crazy shit that you're able to do in standard.
But people play random fucking trash in standard too in play.
Yeah.
When you're playing casual, it's just there's so much trash.
I'm not saying I've ran into that much trash though. I'm saying the good decks that I've ran into that I've still been able to eke out a victory against let me know that. Like, so when I went back to gold with like playing against like the better decks I've played against in standard casuals, like I've been on a tear, bro. I went from gold 3 to gold 1 in like a work shift. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, word. I'm probably gonna hit plat before I go to sleep. That's the plan, But we still on Mulligan.
I mean, we're on Mulligan, but we're on the whole concept.
We're on the concept now. You know what I'm saying? Because next, I mean, I guess if we want to get into it, we go to your hand, or at least that'd be the reason you are mulliganing. But then, okay, we already kind of talked mana efficiency, which is that turn land for turn, and potentially being able.
Well, mana efficiency is the mana efficient thing to do is spend all your mana each turn.
Yeah. Well,
That's what mana efficiency is. The effect you get for how much money you spend.
does
And
that
you want to
include your
spend all
opponent's
your
turn
mana.
too,
Before it comes back to your turn, you typically want to have spent all of your mana.
though? Yeah. Okay, and that's okay, and I agree to that because then that would involve you having responses on your opponent's turn as well, and then being all the way tapped out before you get back to your turn.
Yeah.
Okay. So mana efficiency. What about it? You must be efficient because you start to take a disadvantage when your opponent plays stronger cards than you in general. So you want to be able to either keep up with the amount of mobs you're able to place or the amount of support for those mobs. You get what I'm saying? And when I say mobs, I'm just talking creatures. And when I say support, I'm talking like artifacts, enchantments, um, planeswalkers. You know, I mean, some planeswalkers win the game, but not as many as like. Okay.
You'd prefer if you're playing a Planeswalker for it to have a decent impact on the game. That's why most people play Planeswalkers. You don't play Planeswalkers that are not good.
Aren't there not good planeswalkers?
Hmm?
Aren't there not good planeswalkers?
Plenty of not good Planeswalkers.
Okay. Just like there's plenty of not good cards. Okay.
Exactly. Back when Planeswalkers were new, they were making them pretty strong.
I was around for that. Like when first Planeswalkers first came
You
out.
were around in Lorwyn? Lorwyn?
Well, I wasn't playing the game. I was getting books that had advertisements for Magic and gave out free cards to go ahead and try to sell it. So, like, I remember getting a Jace card growing up. I was a Planeswalker. I forget what it was though.
Yeah, they did have a time when they had books that came with cards.
Yeah, back in the demo days. But anyways, mana efficiency. But like, okay, what goes into a turn? All right, so we got mulligan. All right, that's the start of the game. After that, you have your turn one, and mana efficiency goes into your turn one. After that, it's turn two. Okay, well, you know what? There's topics within these things, right? Because within a turn, you have your main phase one. Typically, what you want to do is try to set yourself up for victory, or potentially set yourself up for the battle phase, right?
What do you mean?
I mean, in main phase one, obviously, in every main phase, your objective is to push yourself towards victory, right? But usually, main phase two, you do end of turn stuff, whereas main phase one, you do beginning of the turn stuff.
No. See, you guys be playing wrong. You guys, generally, in Magic, you get rewarded for doing whatever you can do as late as possible. So what higher level players do, unless there's a reason to play something main phase 1, they play everything main phase 2.
Okay. So typically, you don't even take a main phase one unless it's to help your shit.
You just play your land, that's it.
You just go land main phase one, attack, and then you set up for the rest of your turn.
And then you play cards in your main phase 2, or if you have instants, you hold them for your opponent's turn.
And so the idea is to hold shit just as long as possible in general to make the most of every card, right?
Well, whoever acts last and has the most information is probably going to win.
That's a real magician's tool.
You never noticed that about Magic?
I never looked at it from that perspective because it is about responses.
Yeah, it's
not
about responses.
about action. That's not how you win
No.
Magic. Yeah, but I've won through.
But there are,
I've
but
won
there
through-
are. This is where you get into higher level concepts of gaming overall.
Yeah.
There's like, they talk about this in next level deck building as well. The wheel of strategy, or the wheel of gaming, or the wheel of like game design, or game metas, basically.
Yeah.
In general games, it's called like rush, defense, and economy. In Magic, it's more like control, combo, and aggro. Or aggro is the rush, control is the defense, and combo is the economy, right? With aggro, you're just trying to take a straight line to victory. I play my shit, dump my creatures on the board, and you get to 0 as fast as possible. Or I play lightning bolt enough times to deal you enough damage that you just die. Control is famous for a land go strategy, where every turn they draw a card, play a land, and pass turn they say go. That's why it's called land go. because they want to have instants up to respond to stuff on your turn, counter spells and stuff like that. Or if they can play a flash threat, that's a really big fucking finisher. They would love to do that too. Really, really late in the game. And then combo. Combo is just trying to spin its wheels until it puts together the right combination of cards to instantly kill you, basically.
I think every deck I run is a form of a combo deck. Any deck that is not a combo deck is a land go deck that I've been playing like a combo or an aggro deck.
Also,
for example, I have my Urza Silex deck, right?
yeah.
Where you meld Urza. But I play it like I'm trying to combo shit. But in reality, what you're supposed to be doing with the deck is holding power tokens and preserving your artifact creatures to get a stable and strong enough board to kill. And the thing is, since it's blue, I'm supposed to be running enough stuff that counters on my opponent's turn to leave my mana phase safe enough for me to create power stones. You can use those power stones to then be able to respond to things to be safe enough to go and Silex, either -5 somebody shit or draw 2 cards, and then Urza comes out, meld them, boom, Urza playing while I win the game, right? Or even like I've been trying to play Brawl a lot recently, but since I'm in gold, if your deck's not gold good, it's not good, right? So I realized all my decks are bad, and I don't have fun playing Brawl anymore. Because I'm like, damn, the green deck that I play, it's like a build. I got this big shit and a lot of it, and now you die, right? Like
see, for example, you just reminded me of something. You just reminded me of this article by this guy named Dave Serlin. It's called The Scrub Mentality. It's about scrubs, right? Yeah. He basically defines the scrub mentality as when you start playing a game that nobody else is playing, right? And playing by your own rules to have some sort of elusive concept of fun, right? And it's not like a bad thing necessarily. It's not necessarily like a good thing. But typically being a scrub or having a scrub mentality gets in the way of having a really competitive way of approaching the game. Because you're putting shackles on yourself. Like saying that somebody can't do Fireball 100 times to you because it's cheap and you don't know how to get around it. Like, there's an answer to Fireball. You just don't know what it is. And
it's your fault that you don't know the answer to Fireball.
Exactly.
So,
But making other people play by these rules is impossible because they just don't exist in the game.
So, am I a cunt for wanting to make mono black go to Mythic?
No.
But it's good, right?
I never said mono black was bad. I never said it was a part of a scrub mentality thing. I never said anything like that.
No, it's just the way that I approach not wanting to use meta shit is scrub mentality.
It is fairly scrubby.
Why? For all the reasons you just said.
For all the reasons you just said.
Because it's like I'm putting shackles on myself for no reason, which prevent me from getting better.
Because other people play this card. Because meta is really just defined by other people playing.
I'm thinking of like HOK though. Because like when I play good characters, like we just win. And then I play like niggas, I'm like, oh, I want to have fun. And then now we're like, it's hard. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the fun is in winning. It's not in fucking having fun in the game. And
well, see, that's where it gets into a game design. It's a weird conflict between games and gamers themselves, right? In the sense that, consider this. No matter how you design a game, no matter how you make it, no matter what type of game you make, if it's competitive, even if it's not competitive sometimes, there's going to be a best character and a worst character. You know what I'm saying? The game designers want everything to be viable and playable. But the players are going to determine this is the best character, this is the worst character, for whatever reasons. And it could be... Now, what the difference could be is the margins between the different characters where skill can make up the gap, right? But if the difference between the top player, the top character, and the bottom character is a 10% differential, and that differential is also ease of use. Not only like their goodness of kit, but like skill floor is low.
And that's what I was
Right.
gonna say, right? Is it when does it become that this guy is good versus this person is skillful, right? Because what it sounds like more so is that the type of player that I want to be is a highly skilled individual that has like, because and here's also what it's sounding like to me as well is that like if it's verifiably good from a good player's perspective, then there's good in its potential, but it's not good for everyone else because never everybody else can be that good when it comes to doing certain things.
Mm-hmm.
For example, even when playing decks, not everybody's gonna think about like certain players that were like,
Not everybody's a good control player.
yeah, there you go.
They don't just be countering everything. They don't know what's crucial to counter. They don't. They just like.
They just counter just a counter. That's me.
Yeah.
Being a cunt. That's why I have like 15 counter spells. So all I do is counter until you rage.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with my kill spells.
But that also becomes a little bit inefficient because it's
No,
like
I don't run 15 anymore. I promise.
No, yeah, no, but that gets into a little bit of concept related to even mulliganing. Oh, so many deep things related to mulliganing related to this issue when it comes to sideboarding. You're not at sideboarding yet because you're playing best of one games, right? On Arena. When you get more cards, we'll have you do more sideboarded games, especially when you get higher rank. But like, there are times when you have answers in your sideboard, right? That you want to bring into your main deck.
Yeah, like, damn, I wish I had this shit.
Yeah. So, in game 2, what happens is, 2 things happen sometimes. You either over sideboard, you bring too many answers to their stuff in, and not enough of your main thing. And even then, you don't see enough of those answers, and sometimes you do see those answers, but it's just they're not relevant at the time of what's going on. And you end up losing anyway because you didn't put any of your own threats out there and like try to develop the board. Mm-hmm. So stuff like that can happen, and then mulliganing too aggressively to try and get the sideboard item, unless it's like against a combo deck, I'd say. Like if that thing shuts out their strategy completely and gives you time to sit back forever and win, then yeah, mulligan pretty aggressively to that thing, especially if you can play it for free. Fucking go ahead.
Yeah.
Right?
Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
Otherwise, it doesn't really make any sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was gonna say my problem used to be that I didn't mulligan aggressively enough, looking for like what a really good hand was. Right? I would keep not exactly speculative hands, but like four
What
land.
is a speculative hand?
A speculative hand is like, let's say you need one land to really make it work, but if you get that land, it'll really go off. But you only got two lands. You maybe got a turn 1 play, no turn 2 play, but you're like 3, 4, 5, really good if you can just draw lands, right?
That's what I've been doing recently, just like hoping I draw those lands.
That's like speculative keeps. You're like, this could work out, but like maybe it really
What are the chances on it working out?
Yeah,
Type shit.
you gotta really analyze that.
Because then you'll get to the point where you just keep on drawing shit, and you're like, oh, damn, that's how you feel? You're gonna give me lands now, huh?
Yeah.
I only get 2 lands up to turn 10.
So yeah, I learned to mulligan more aggressively. But like, what's crazy with this mono red prowess deck is I low key do be keeping 1 land hands and still just be winning on niggas. Because it's just like 3 damage a turn can really beat people.
And then once you finally kill the shit, and then it still does 3 damage to you, you're dead.
But what's really wild is what I'm really looking forward to, or what I really be trying to look for is the turn 3 kill. Like, I look at my hand and I go, like, with the red prowess, I look at my hand and I'm like, can I get them to 18 by turn 2?
Mm-hmm.
Or turn 3? 18 by turn 2, really? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, if they're at 18, can I deal 18 on turn 3? And I be doing it. I'm talking about, like, all you need to do when they're at 18 is Cacophony Scamp and Burn Together. Get Cacophony Scamp to 6 and Burn Together.
What's Burn Together do?
Burn Together is 1 red. Um, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target any target
On top of
and sacrifice it.
Oh wow! So then you use this on it,
Yeah,
and then what's the buff it gives?
it doesn't give any buff.
It just attacks, and or at least you attach it, and then it does its damage to the thing. Then okay, is that 6, right?
It's a sorcery.
So the sorcery. Okay, so boom, you attack with Cacophony Snap, you do 6 damage, and then you use this thing's ability to do 6 damage.
And you
And then
sacrifice
once it's dead, then it does another 6 damage.
Yep, 18 damage.
Damn.
So like, if you're in red prowess, that's what you should be looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's also another card that fucking does something similar to what Cacophony Scamp does. It's a red rabbit.
Mhm.
So I ran into it. It's fucking killed me before. I forget the name of it though. It's like I think a 1 cost or a 2 cost. It's like when this creature dies, deal its damage or deal its power to any I believe any either a creature or any something your opponent controls.
There's only 2 right now in standard. It's Heartfire Hero and Cacophony Scamp.
Yeah, Heartfire Hero.
Cacophony Scamp is any target. Heartfire Hero is target opponent.
Target opponent. Yeah, Heartfire Hero has killed me before.
Yeah.
Whenever I see it, I kill it. Whenever I see Cacophony Scamp, I kill it.
Yeah. You should. Yes.
They're like 1 cost cards, but they're very rough.
Yeah, they're the bane of best of 1 right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Because when they appear, you can't do nothing about them. And best of 3s, they don't work because you can just plan for them.
Yeah. Well, best of 3s, they have to have a better sideboard. Because you know they're coming now. So, like,
yeah.
there's a wider variety of decks.
Doing that shit on turn 3, too.
Yeah, people are ready for anti-red shit bullshit.
So what do you think about this next season that's coming up? Do you think Cacophony Scamp and Heartfire Hero is still going to be relevant as far
Oh,
as
yeah, for sure. They're printing a better card.
What?
It's like Inside Out Dread or some shit like that. It's this card that gives you +3/+0, and when they die, manifest Dread.
What do you manifest for the Dread?
Manifest Dread is look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 into your graveyard, and put 1 face down onto your onto the battlefield as a 2/2.
And then you can just play for it to flip.
Yeah.
Is it an artifact? Or is it like a flip?
No, it's a red spell like Felonious Rage.
Okay. So it just does it once?
Yeah, +3/+0.
And then it also allows you to basically gain more tempo because then you put something on the board for free potentially.
Yeah, if it does.
Okay. Oh, wait, it's a creature?
No, you target creature gets +3/+0, and when it dies, until end of turn, when it dies, put a manifest Dread.
Okay.
So it's like Felonious Rage, but better.
Okay.
And then, see, even this is something you have to consider when you're mulliganing, especially in a best of 1 or a competitive environment or a best of 3 situation, right? You have to think about what's the best deck in the format, right? And what decks you're most likely to see, in the sense of, right now, mono red and aggro is like a plague, right? People are not really fucking with it, but there's a pretty wide meta of decks overall that are just kind of viable, right? As long as you can get past red, if you have a game against red, you can play in this meta, right?
Mm-hmm.
Red is just like the boogeyman of the format, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get past red, then you should be good. So typically, if red is the boogeyman in the format, you should be keeping hands and thinking, in general, would this be the red deck when you're mulliganing?
Okay.
And you don't want to have such strict mulligan rules with like a particular number of lands. Like 1 land keeps are probably not advisable in most decks, right? In most situations. But you like don't necessarily look at it as 2 or 3 because some decks actually want to have 3 or 4, right, in their opening hand. But they also have more lands in their deck overall, right? But you want to like have a feel for what can I do and how efficient can I be, and if this goes badly, what's gonna happen with it? And then the really simple question to ask yourself is, are there 6 cards better than this, really? And how often am I going to have 6 cards better than this?
When you play?
When you're mulliganing.
Oh, okay. Because you think about the potential hand, you don't want to just kind of get stuck in looking at the lamp. Is that what you're saying, essentially?
Okay. Look at the overall texture of your hand.
Yeah.
And then determine if you can find 6 cards better than these 7 cards.
Okay.
Because if most of your 6 card hands are better than the 7 cards you have, you probably want a mulligan.
Yeah, it only makes sense.
It only makes sense, right? But also the reverse is true. And generally, most 7 card hands are better than 6 cards because you're missing a fucking card.
Mm.
But the theoretical 7 cards is not what you're looking at. You're looking at an actual 7 cards, and then you have to think about the theoretical 6.
Mm. Okay.
Right? Because you have what you're looking at when you're mulligan.